after graduating college, I moved to Crater Lake to live and work amongst an amazing place with such natural beauty, and it broke my heart that a place with such clear reason to protect in my eyes was not viewed that way by everyone who came through. And I saw the amount of cigarette butts that were littered on a regular basis and realized how normalized it was to litter cigarette butts. And I always viewed smoking as a bad habit from a health perspective in terms of developing lung cancer and things like that. But I failed to see the magnitude of harm it caused on our environment, which is what my personal passion lies in. And I was connected with YAFT shortly after my season at Crater Lake, and I love their mission and their values, and I think that they provide a great space for like-minded people to come together with a shared goal and maximize their personal strengths to really affect positive change. And I just jumped on the opportunity to get involved, and I think it's amazing working with people who want to see and create positive change in the world.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
My name is Katie Moose. I am the project director for the STAND project with the California Health Collaborative. STAND stands for Small Town Allies Against Nicotine Dependency. We work in the Gold Country region, we're in the rural Gold Country area of California on tobacco control and tobacco prevention policies and strategies to reduce tobacco rates, because they're higher in rural areas of the state than in urban areas.
Why is it important to discuss the environment?
I was really surprised to learn about the large environmental impact that the tobacco industry actually has. I mean, we all know about cigarette butts. Those are, in your face every day. So cigarette butts are definitely a huge problem that needs to be addressed. However, the tobacco industry also has devastating environmental impacts in a whole bunch of different ways. One of the biggest is deforestation. Billions of trees are cut down every year for farming, and then also for drying the leaves. And this is happening mostly in other countries, but it's having a huge impact on greenhouse gases and global warming. Then there's, farming practices and the ways that the farmers are treated, and whether they're, not being fairly paid, and that the soil erosion from the tobacco plant is also higher than other crops. So it's also kind of devastates the land when you do tobacco farming in an area. Then there's pesticide usage. Then there's the manufacturing of the product, all of the water that's being used for that, the transportation. Then there's the end use product, which has been designed to just throw on the ground when you're talking about a cigarette butt. And when you're talking about single-use vape products, I mean, these are things that can't be recycled. They have nicotine, they have a battery, they're all in this little plastic gadget that you can't take apart at all. It's extremely toxic. There's no safe way to dispose of them. And the industry says just go ahead and throw it in the trash, which is starting fires in some trash facilities. It's leaching into our environment. So whether we're talking about e-cigarettes or regular cigarettes, the end-use product is just very poorly designed. There's no safe way to dispose of these things, and the industry knows it. So all these things put together make tobacco a huge problem for our environment, with absolutely no redemptive quality about this product. Not only is it destroying our environment, it's also killing us.
So what can we do to prevent the tobacco waste from harming our environment? What can we do?
Well, a lot of strategies have been tried about this, right? There's cleanup events and beach cleanup days where people go out and try to pick up all the cigarette butts that they find on the ground. Um, there's been some efforts about how can we dispose of e-cigarettes in a better, safer way. The problem with those types of solutions, or even ash cans too, right? Like more ash cans you can put your cigarette butts in so they don't end up on the ground. The problem with those types of solutions is those are downstream solutions. They are solutions that are trying to like put a band-aid on the problem after the fact, after the problem's already been created. A better solution would look upstream. Let's look at how can we make sure that this problem isn't created in the first place. These products are designed to just be tossed on the ground or just be tossed in the trash. There's no good way to dispose of these things. So we're not going to be able to come up with a good disposal solution. The solution is really, just not having these products around in the first place. They play no positive social redemptive quality. There's nothing about them that is good for any of us. They're addictive. When young people start to use them, it changes their brain chemistry, the nicotine does, and makes them susceptible to all other types of addiction. It's also been shown to decrease IQ levels, to impact a young person's sleep. So there's just no reason why we need to keep these products around and figure out a better way to dispose of them. So the solution is really, it's really about ending the tobacco epidemic in California and just not having these products around at all.
Why is tobacco control important to you?
Tobacco control has been important because throughout my life, I saw tobacco there. It was prevalent. I saw with my family where it could be seen with mostly the men that smoked it, but there was women, of course, there that smoked it as well. Granted, it was to a lesser degree. And it was just something that it was just thought of as socially acceptable. And it's just a relic of their own time. I know that with my stepdad, Mario, he would smoke with his friends outside of the apartments. He would smoke in the car on his way to work or wherever. He would just smoke wherever he pleased. But that would end up catching up with him, those habits, smoking that little thing, that little cigarette. It would end up catching up to him because one day when I was 16 and it was during winter time, I was at class and I was getting a call from my mom and I answered and she told me, to not come to the apartment, to my house where I lived, that I would go with my dad. And so I was kind of confused by this. I asked why she wanted me to do so, and she said she didn't really answer me truthfully. She didn't give me the full reason. She just told me that, that everything was all right and that I just needed to go to my dad's house. And I would call her many times, but I felt like I was being ignored. So everything was just silence. But that just ended up making things worse because I got even more worried. I had no idea what happened with my mom, what happened with Mario. And it wasn't until I found out, and it was from my brother that I found out that Mario was having kidney problems. One of his kidneys was failing. And that was a very dire situation because Mario was a part of my life when I was 4 years old. We saw him as part of the family. So the thought of losing him was something that very much scared me.
My name is Ephraim Lopez. My pronouns are he, him. Zooming in from the greater Sacramento area, which is Maydew and Miwok lands. I am the project director for the Environmental Justice and Tobacco Control Project of the Sierra Club. I have a master's in public health, and I'm a first generation person of color to receive a master's degree in general. Start by saying that all of my comments today for the remaining questions, in terms of any type of ailments or issues, if I just say tobacco, I'm referring to commercial tobacco. And the reason why between these two differences is that many American Indian, Alaska Native communities use traditional or sacred tobacco for ceremonial purposes. And some of the key differences are really in how it's grown and how it's utilized. So commercial tobacco, any given cigarette, for example, has thousands of harmful chemicals, hundreds of which are, or thousands of chemicals, hundreds of which are harmful, and about 80 of which directly cause cancers or known carcinogens. They're also processed and manufactured in a very different way, very much commercial sale. Traditional or sacred tobacco is typically grown on tribal land by tribal people with no added chemicals, pesticides. It's not genetically modified. And their uses are very, very, very different. It could be used for ceremony, to sprinkle over a fire before beginning a ceremony, in which case it isn't actually being smoked or inhaled. It could be used to offer to a plant, for example, a different sacred plant before you go to harvest, as an offering, or you could give it to an elder or a healer as a sign of respect. So those are different uses that don't even really encompass the smoking of the sacred or traditional tobacco. There are some instances where tribes do smoke the tobacco product or chew it. There's different strains and different kinds in different areas. In California, we have 109 federally recognized tribes and many more seeking federal recognition. Some of them don't use it at all, and others do. And every tribe is its own independent sovereign nation, so they all operate independently, and therefore have very different cultures or traditions in that aspect. There's quite a bit that you can do in terms of legislation. Some jurisdictions choose to have a resolution, which is the equivalent of a community saying, we got to do something about this. We don't know what we're doing yet, but by, I don't know, next year, we are going to make a decision about it, right? And that's claiming that they acknowledge the issue and something's going to be done about it. Then there's an ordinance, which is an actual law, for example, saying that a product cannot be sold in that particular jurisdiction, whether it be a city or county, to say something like a flavors ban or a total ban in general, and saying we just don't sell this product here. Is unlawful to do that, which is an ordinance. Then there's, on a state level, there's like assembly bills or Senate bills, which can't really get into all that much, and they have their own state legislature processes before that they follow a path before becoming law. But in terms of state bills, local ordinances or local jurisdiction can have stronger laws. So, for example, there was a flavors ban statewide, and many local jurisdictions had already banned flavors, and then the state did its own bill, and jurisdictions, if they didn't already have it, now have to abide by the state mandate, but they can choose to have a stricter policy for any reason. But it doesn't work the same way the other way. So the state doesn't really have to abide by smaller county or city jurisdictions policies.